First of all, you're like a god to our fan base, and
I'm just an artist on the show, you know.
what do storyboard artists do?
Storyboard artists are the first step after the script, so we're the first ones to put picture to the words and to the sound. And we help plan out the episode visually, and it's our job to kind of make sure, you know, all the jokes work, all the action is tight and exciting, and all the scenes have good balance. And you know, it's our job to draft the episode. We make like the rough draft of the episode.
So you do communicate a lot with the writers?
Yes, we have like meetings every couple of weeks. They do what's called a kickoff, where we meet with the writers. They go over everything, and then we have about 2 weeks to just kind of barf out a very fast version of what they would like to see. And then from there on, it's kind of a volley back and forth. They see what we did, they give us some notes, we do more things. Yeah, so it's like they see what we do, they give us notes. We make some changes, we get some new ideas in there sometimes, and then it's back and forth until we have something that's like locked tight.
Cool, so it's two-sided connection.
Yeah, I mean, the writers are more or less, you know, the ones that are the final word. But there's a lot of opportunity for us to kind of like come up with our own ideas and riff on it. And they like to see, you know, if we have like a creative thought or an idea for a scene, they're very receptive to that.
What is it like to work in a team that creates Rick and Morty?
It's extremely exciting and fun. Mostly it's because there's a lot of talented people on the show, and I enjoy working with people that are like I'm impressed by. And I remember when I first got hired on the show, I was looking around just being like, oh my God, like I got to really bring my A game because everyone on this show is so good. And so that's really fun. And obviously everyone is like big fans of the show itself and are happy to be on it. So it's a fun place to work.
You're a fan as well, right?
Oh yeah.
On our channel, there are very few people who wouldn't like to work on Rick and Morty. How did you get to work in this team? Yeah.
I was working at another studio called Fox ADHD. Fox is a channel in the States that was trying to start an Adult Swim kind of channel. Animation Domination High Def, you know it. Yeah, so Axe Cop, Major Lazer, Golan the Insatiable. I had worked on all those shows. And they liked the work I was doing, and they actually asked me if I wanted to direct some episodes of this show, Golan the Insatiable, which is about a demon warlord exiled to Minnesota. And I was working with the head writers of that show, these guys, they're called Matt and Dave, Matt Silverstein and Dave Jesser. But that company unfortunately ended up kind of falling apart. And while I was kind of like looking around for what to do next, I heard that Rick and Morty was staffing up. And Matt and Dave knew the producers of Rick and Morty, and they put in a good word for me. So it was one of those situations where they were like, hey, but I did have to test to be on the show. That's a pretty common thing in animation. You have to like almost audition. So by recommending me, he got me the test. So it was then up to me to kind of like, well, let me bring what I got to the table, and thankfully they decided I had what it took.
You still made it all work. It's all yours.
Yeah. I mean, the test was very freeform. It was one of these tests that you had to sort of write yourself. They sort of just gave you a prompt. It was something like Rick and the family are doing something boring, and Rick's like, this isn't fun, let's do something more fun. And he like puts everybody in sort of a video game, but once it happens, they have to fight a family of other players, and what that looks like is up to you. So you had to really kind of cook up your own sort of narrative.
A writer and storyboard.
You sort of had to write. Yeah, storyboarding does have a fair bit of writing involved. You sort of need to understand story structure and where you're kind of like, when a beat is resonant, when a story beat is resonant, you know, your storyboards need to support that.
Yeah, sure.
And then sometimes, you know, there's just room to, I call it writing in the corners of the script, because the script kind of is laying out the major architecture of the story, but then sometimes you might see an opportunity to visually plus something up or like add a little bit of, you know, special sauce here and there.
Mm-hmm. Rick and Morty is like one of the greatest shows ever, not just taking animation shows. What do you think makes it so special?
I think it's because it's willing to go there. It's one of these shows that I think it's like it doesn't play it safe. I think for two reasons. First of all, it respects the intelligence of its audience. I think a lot of shows just kind of like, oh, it's got to be accessible to everybody, so let's dumb it down. I've been on shows where that's like the frustrating mantra, where it's like, oh, it's got to be stupid. And like, no, let it be smart. And I think Rick and Morty goes in that direction. But I think also, I mean, Dan and Justin are such great writers, like they're willing to kind of like set up a science fiction concept, and when I see it, like it goes there, it's like they follow that, they pull that thread all the way. Like, where would this really go? Like, how fucked up can this really get? And I think, you know, so many other shows they end up playing it safe because that's what works, but they're willing to kind of like just take those risks and be like, let's just see if we can, you know, find our way into this netherworld and find our way out again in a really unique way. So
there is really a question like, how fucked up can this be? And it's the gist of the show?
I don't know if that's the gist of it, but I mean, you know, sometimes you'll see a script that will be like, it's good, but it's not like blowing my mind. And then the writers, like, we may do an early pass on it with the thumbnails, and then they see like, yeah, it's going there, but like we need to go there. And then suddenly they rewrite the third act, and you're like, oh yeah, that's more Rick and Morty now. Yeah.
Which Rick and Morty character do you see yourself in?
Oh man, are we Mortys or are we Ricks, right?
Yeah. Jerry's.
Are we Jerry's? Mostly Jerry's, yeah. We're all really Jerry's, right? That's kind of what it comes down to. I don't know, it's hard. I mean, Morty is the kind of one that you want to kind of root for because he's sort of the underdog. Yeah, Rick is an asshole.
You associate yourself with Morty?
No, I mean, I think the thing is Morty has a good heart, but then he also has major flaws as well that will well, I don't want to say anything about the new season, but you know, Jerry's kind of a little too much of a loser for me, and Rick is a little too much of an asshole. So Morty's kind of like that. Maybe I'll go with Summer, because she's just hanging out.
Summer's getting more and more the bigger part every new season. Mm-hmm. So
Yeah. But don't forget, you know, Mr. Poopy Butthole's a good standby. You can always go with him.
I actually hoped you'd say something about Mr. Poopy Butthole, because we are all a little bit of Mr. Poopy Butthole, however it sounds. I mean, every single work has some part of it which is like you don't want to do it. It sucks, but you have to do it. Is there some part like this in your job?
That's a good question. Sometimes cleanup. And what I mean by that is like storyboarding is the most fun when you're kind of like riffing and improvising and kind of coming up when you're cooking the stew and puzzling. It's kind of a puzzle where you're like inventing the puzzle pieces as you're building the puzzle. Mm-hmm. And that's where the most invention happens. That's where like I think it's the most breathtaking is the word I was going to use. That's a little, I think, over the top.
No,
but
you're breathtaking.
yeah, right. But the eventually it reaches a point where, okay, this is approved. Get in there, polish up the acting, make sure all the characters are on model, and that can be like 2 or 3 days of work sometimes, and especially if you have a scene where they're just kind of chatting, like, you know, that can be a little bit like
a routine.
A little routine. I mean, I don't, those are the days that I'll like listen to a lot of podcasts and like not have to think as much, but you know, it's the labor part.
If we all got into the reality of Rick and Morty, what are the 3 basic rules of surviving there?
The reality of Rick and Morty? Well, you need a go bag, you know, for whenever aliens invade or whenever the Earth gets attacked by Cromulans or something like that. You need something to kind of survive. Probably a weapon of some kind you're going to want to need, and you know, maybe start studying your physics a little bit so that you could do something if Rick kind of like subverts the reality. But yeah, I think the first 2 are the most important if it's all about survival. Like you got your at least 3 days of food and water ready to go, a weapon of some kind, and like a science textbook.
Cool. Okay, so now I'm going to survive in this reality as well. Any spoilers for season 4?
I'm afraid not. I can't say anything about that.
Yeah, I understand that. What is the most...
It's going to be good. How about that? Is that a spoiler?
That's a great thing to say.
Yeah.
What is the most embarrassing thing you've ever drawn in your life for money?
Well, what's coming to mind is I was working on like a Lil Wayne parody.
Lil Wayne?
You know Lil Wayne, the rapper?
Yeah.
And my boss really wanted a lot of twerking in it. And yeah, a lot of butts shaking and thongs and stuff like that. And then I don't know if this is too much. There was like, I think it was for a football team. It was like a Lil Wayne thing for the Green Bay Packers, which is an American football team. And their theme is cheese. So he was rapping about Cheese Whiz, and he wanted me to, he wanted me to do an image with like, there's the butts twerking, and he wanted me to have him like spraying Cheese Whiz all over the butts, which is a metaphor. You know, it was supposed to be, and I'm like, this is a lot. Like, you know, you're going for something here that's, I know what you're trying to do, but he wanted to see it, so he paid me to do that, and yeah, it exists somewhere in the, I mean. It was more like once he saw it, it was like, yeah, this is too much. So there was I didn't say I told you so, but.
So we, on our TV channel, we are drawing a new cartoon about a Russian superhero. It's called Bordashev. How much should we pay you so that you quit your job in Rick and Morty and work for us?
Oh man, no comment. I don't know. I have no idea what. I mean, it's tough to leave Rick and Morty, I got to say. I mean, a few other shows have asked me to come by, and my personal ambition is I'm hoping to direct. I was a director on previous shows. When I got hired on Rick and Morty, I wanted to direct, but obviously there's so much talent there, and like a lot of the directors were like former Simpsons guys and extremely talented people. So I was like, of course I'll take a job here as a storyboard artist. Yes, I'd like to. I mean, we're working on it. I don't want to say too much right now, but you know, we have a lot more episodes to make, and hopefully they let me at least direct one. We'll see. So that kind of comes up. Whereas it like, you know, some other show might come up to me and be like, hey, we'd love to have you direct, and you know, those are decisions that need to be made when the time comes. But.
So for now, the show you would quit Rick and Morty for, it just doesn't exist.
Well, I can't say that. I don't know. It depends. It's you know, I have some friends back in Los Angeles that are developing some pretty cool IPs, some cool projects, and yeah. Well, what's the thing with Rick and Morty is it's a great show. The writing's phenomenal. It's got this great fan base, and I love how devoted everybody is. The thing is, if you can get on a new show, then you have an opportunity to kind of help shape the language of that, which is definitely compelling. So I don't know how far along you guys are in the development of the process, but probably pretty far along.
Yeah, but still, I mean, we're pretty far from being Rick and Morty. Everyone is far from being Rick and Morty.
Yeah, a lot of people are trying.
Yeah. So on the topic of some adult animation, what are 3 or maybe 5 the most adult animation series you would recommend everybody to watch?
Oh boy. I think Adventure Time is great. That's kind of a wonderful sandbox kind of world. It's got a lot of hip artists that have worked on it. A lot of, you know, it's one of these shows that I call a sandbox show because so much can just happen there. The language, the visual language is so elastic and like so much can happen. I'm a big fan of Aeon Flux, which is a show from MTV a long time ago. I think, you know, The Simpsons is always one of these kind of like very solid, laid the groundwork to what so much, at least American animation is today. Yeah. And some of those old episodes are just like so tight. They're like drum tight. And I watch them now, even still. I'm just like, these are fantastic. Ren and Stimpy's another show that's probably in that same vein. I know it's just such incredible artwork all over that show. And then a 5th one, let me see.
You can't name Rick and Morty right now.
No, I can't. Well, I think besides Rick and Morty, yes, of course. Sure.
BoJack, maybe.
No, yeah, BoJack is great. Trying to think if there's something that's like really. I mean, a lot of us like, you know, One Punch Man, that kind of thing. Watch a fair bit of anime. I'm a big One Piece fan. I don't know if you know One Piece.
Sure.
I prefer the manga to the show, but yeah, let's leave it at that.
So I think now we're going to have a little blitz round.
This hasn't been a blitz round already.
Short questions. Okay. Rick or Morty?
Rick or Morty? All right, Rick.
Have you heard a lot of Russian words?
Some.
The weirdest one.
Yabloko, yeah, no. I don't know, every subway stop. I try and say them as I'm trying to tell my friend, like, this is the one we're getting off at, and I try and pronounce it, and we just make up like an English equivalent, like turkey neck stop or like cake stop, you know. It works for the two of us. He just needed to know, like, you know, what's the closest approximation that I can give him, and you know, that's the best we can do.
Russian vodka or Russian women?
Oh, the women. I'm sorry to be a dog there, but yeah.
What will be the reason of the apocalypse?
Oh man, I think I'm gonna have to say fake news.